A gigantic oil tanker loaded with millions in crude oil is attacked by supposed pirates in the Gulf of Aden. Chaos ensues. Fires devastate the ship. The crew flees in haste and the tanker is abandoned in flames. But what seemed like a typical act of piracy hides something much darker. Sabotage? Fraud? Murder? And why was an investigator who tried to uncover the case brutally killed? Today, we're diving into the secrets of the Brillante Virtuoso, a story where greed and mystery collide in the world's most dangerous waters. The Gulf of Aden is a curious place, a vital connection point between the Indian Ocean and the Red Sea, through which 20% of the world's oil passes daily. It's the kind of place where wealth and danger share the same horizon, a place that can be incredibly calm or erupt into chaos at the most unexpected moment. On the night of July 5, 2011, the Brillante Virtuoso, an oil tanker, was following its route, seemingly uneventful. The sea was calm, the crew focused, the ship equipped with state-of-the-art technology. To any observer, it seemed like just another ordinary voyage along one of the world's most critical maritime routes. But the Gulf of Aden has a reputation. Sailors know that despite its beauty, these waters can turn into a nightmare in the blink of an eye. It's like being in a dangerous neighborhood. You know you need to walk quickly and avoid attracting attention. And that's exactly what the crew of the Brillante Virtuoso did. But that night, something in the air felt different, heavy, almost as if the sea itself wanted to warn of something coming. The Brillante Virtuoso was a masterpiece of maritime engineering, a massive tanker registered under the Liberian flag designed to transport crude oil across thousands of miles. With its enormous dimensions and trained crew, it was a vital piece in the puzzle of global fuel trade. On that voyage, the ship's destination seemed simple: deliver a valuable cargo of crude oil to refineries in Asia. But if there's one thing we've learned from stories like this, it's that not everything is as it seems. While the ship advanced under the starry Gulf of Aden skies, something was amiss. A small detail, almost imperceptible, that would only make sense later. The sailors were aware of the dangers of these waters, but trusted in luck, the naval forces, patrolling the area and the ship's sturdiness. What they didn't know was that the fate of the Brillante Virtuoso wouldn't be decided by maritime currents or the stars. Something, or someone, was about to completely change the course of this voyage. The Gulf of Aden can be described as the heart of global maritime trade. It connects the Indian Ocean to the Red Sea and, by extension, the Suez Canal, one of the most important routes on the planet. It's a strategic region through which approximately 55,000 ships pass annually. Oil, manufactured goods, food, everything that moves the world passes through these waters. At the same time, however, the Gulf of Aden is known for something else: modern piracy. In 2011, this area became the stage for more than 200 pirate attacks, many carried out by organized groups from Somalia, a country marked by decades of political instability. These pirates aren't like the ones from movies or fantasy books that most people imagine. They are brutal, well-armed, and extremely organized. They operate in fast boats, equipped with GPS and even advanced communication devices. For them, attacking ships is a lucrative business, generating millions in ransoms every year. What's fascinating and disturbing about the Gulf of Aden is that it seems like a paradox. On one hand, it's patrolled by international naval forces. On the other, pirates continue to act often within sight of warships. This raises an uncomfortable question. Is there more happening in these waters than meets the eye? Beyond piracy, the Gulf of Aden has another reputation. It's a stage for clandestine operations: smuggling, espionage, arms trafficking, and even drugs pass through these waters under the radar of authorities. It's a territory where the line between legal and illegal is extremely blurred. What few know is that sometimes the pirates don't act alone. There are rumors and even some evidence that security agents and local forces get involved in schemes, allowing attacks to occur in exchange for a share of the profit. It's a dangerous game where good guys and bad guys aren't always easy to identify. This scenario creates the perfect environment for stories like that of the Brillante Virtuoso, where nothing is as it seems. Were the pirates really the ones responsible for what was about to happen? On that early evening in the Gulf of Aden, the atmosphere aboard the Brillante Virtuoso was one of vigilance. The crew was on alert, but everything seemed to be going as expected. On the deck, the security officer scanned the horizon with binoculars, watching for anything suspicious, while in the control room, the first mate monitored the ship's course. "Everything's clear so far," the security officer remarked to the captain. Earlier, the ship had been inspected by a local coast guard, but the inspection was unusually brief. The captain had noticed this. They didn't even ask about the cargo. "Strange," he commented while reviewing the reports. But in such a volatile area as the Gulf of Aden, sailors often avoid asking too many questions. The primary objective is to cross the danger zone as quickly as possible. Just before midnight, an alarm echoed through the ship's internal communication system. The officer in the control room spotted fast boats approaching from the port side. "Captain, we've got movement on the radar. Boats moving at high speed, heading our way." The crew sprang into action immediately. The security officer rushed to warn the sailors on the deck while the captain attempted to make radio contact. "This is the Brillante Virtuoso. We've detected suspicious activity. We urgently need assistance." But the radio's response was nothing but static. The boats drew close enough for their lights to reveal armed men. From the deck, the attackers' shouts could be heard. "Cut the engines! Surrender now!" Panic spread among the crew. "They're going to attack us. What do we do now?" one of the sailors asked the captain. The captain assessed the situation. He knew that attempting to flee might provoke them to fire. "Stop the engines, but stay alert. We don't know what they want yet," he ordered, masking his apprehension. But, unlike other pirate attacks, these men weren't in a hurry. There were no warning shots, nor did they immediately try to board the ship. Their behavior was calculated, almost as if they were staging something. Before the supposed pirates could act, the unexpected happened. A fire began to spread aboard the ship. It started with a muffled explosion in the engine room, quickly engulfing the main compartment. "Fire! We have a fire in the engine room," a sailor shouted, running toward the bridge. The captain tried to make sense of the situation, but the priority now was to save the crew. "Evacuate! Everyone to the lifeboats immediately!" On board, panic was widespread. The sailors struggled through the smoke to reach the lifeboats as the flames climbed higher. Outside, the supposed pirates' boats simply pulled away. There were no attempts to board the Brillante Virtuoso. They disappeared into the darkness. "They fled? This doesn't make sense," an officer commented while helping launch the lifeboats. From a distance, the crew watched the ship consumed by flames. The valuable crude oil cargo, the equipment, and the very future of the Brillante Virtuoso were literally going up in smoke. The captain, visibly shaken, murmured, "Something's very wrong here. This wasn't just an attack." After the attack and the fire aboard, the Brillante Virtuoso didn't sink but drifted for hours, engulfed in flames. The crew, now in lifeboats, was rescued by support vessels in the area. Despite the chaos, the crude oil cargo, valued at millions of dollars, remained intact. The fire hadn't reached the main tanks, but the ship itself, well, it wasn't in good condition. The fire left the engine room completely destroyed, and the main structure was visibly damaged. It was a miracle the tanker was still afloat. Shortly after the crew was rescued, international maritime forces were called to assess the situation. After ensuring the fire was under control, a salvage team towed the ship to a safe port on the Yemeni coast, where it remained anchored awaiting further investigation. At this point, the story began to take a strange turn. During the initial visual inspections, experts immediately noticed that something didn't add up. There were indications that the fire hadn't started from the outside, as would be expected in a pirate attack. To dig deeper, renowned British investigator David Mockett, a resident of Aden and highly respected in the maritime community, was called to the scene. When Mockett arrived, he immediately realized this case would be unlike any he'd encountered before. During his first visit to the Brillante Virtuoso, Mockett analyzed the wreckage in the engine room, the fire's point of origin. He found something intriguing. The burn marks and chemical residues suggested the fire had been started internally, possibly using accelerants. Mockett meticulously documented everything. He knew the ship was carrying crude oil, but the cargo itself didn't appear to have been affected. This was rare and highly suspicious. In a conversation with a colleague, he confided, "This fire was deliberate. There's no doubt. But what concerns me is, who stands to gain so much from this?" Mockett's initial conclusion was clear. The fire wasn't caused by pirates. There were no signs of external explosions, gunfire, or any direct assault. Moreover, the pirates had fled without taking anything, not even the crew's personal belongings. It was as if the attack had been staged. The theory of internal sabotage began gaining traction, but with it came risks. For Mockett, the deeper he delved into the investigation, the more he felt he was treading on dangerous ground. While Mockett tirelessly worked to piece together the puzzle, the ship's owner, Mario Iliopoulos, remained silent. He made no public statements and refrained from getting directly involved in the investigation. Instead, he left lawyers and representatives to handle dealings with insurers and local authorities. This behavior raised further suspicion. Iliopoulos filed an insurance claim for $77 million, citing irreparable losses from the attack. But his lack of cooperation began to alarm the insurers. After all, if he had nothing to hide, why wasn't he willing to help clarify the facts? With pressure mounting, David Mockett was on the verge of making a crucial discovery. But it would never reach the public. On the afternoon of July 20th, 2011, in Aden, David Mockett wrapped up another day of work investigating the intriguing case of the Brillante Virtuoso. Known for his meticulousness, he had spent the morning reviewing detailed reports and planning his next visit to the ship. Around 1 p.m., Mockett left the office and walked to the parking lot where his silver Lexus, an imposing model he frequently used to get around the city, awaited him. The car was his trademark, reflecting his methodical personality and professional success. As soon as he got into the vehicle and turned the ignition key, everything changed. A deafening explosion shook the parking lot, scattering debris and smoke in all directions. The Lexus was almost instantly destroyed, and Mockett, who was at the wheel, lost his life on the spot. The scene was devastating. Those who witnessed the incident described the car as a twisted heap of metal, with clear signs that the explosion had been calculated to kill. There was no doubt. This was no accident. It was a clear and brutal message. The murder of David Mockett sent shockwaves through the maritime community. It was unthinkable that someone could go so far as to silence an investigator. But at the same time, this raised an unavoidable question. What had he discovered that made him such a big target? One of the most discussed theories pointed to Mario Iliopoulos, the owner of the Brillante Virtuoso. His position as ship owner, combined with the $77 million insurance claim, made him the main beneficiary of the alleged attack on the ship. For many, it made sense that he would want to prevent Mockett from exposing the fraud. Another possibility raised was the involvement of local criminal groups who might have profited from the sabotage scheme. Mockett's investigation threatened to uncover a much larger network than just a simulated piracy case. Mockett even commented to a close friend that he had been feeling watched in the weeks leading up to the attack. He mentioned having received veiled warnings to drop the case, but his determination to uncover the truth kept him firm. The death of Mockett left an immense void in the investigations. He was one of the few experts with the courage and technical knowledge to question the inconsistencies in the Brillante Virtuoso case. With his absence, insurers and local authorities hesitated to proceed, fearing both for their safety and the political and financial consequences of exposing what really happened. The murder also had a devastating effect on the crew of the Brillante Virtuoso. For many sailors already grappling with the trauma of the attack, the brutal act was a stark reminder of how dangerous it was to speak the truth. Despite the theories and suspicions, the case of David Mockett's murder remains unsolved. His destroyed Lexus became a grim symbol of how greed and secrecy in the maritime world can lead to deadly consequences. After years of uncertainty, silence, and rumors, in 2019, the truth finally began to emerge. A British court, after analyzing extensive reports, financial documents, and expert testimonies, revealed what many had already suspected: the attack on the Brillante Virtuoso had been a staged event orchestrated by the ship's owner, Mario Iliopoulos. The investigation detailed that the supposed pirates were, in fact, local contractors hired to stage the attack and create the perfect conditions for an insurance fraud. The plan was bold: simulate a piracy attack to justify the ship's loss and claim an astronomical $77 million insurance payout. What was even more surprising was the level of sophistication involved in the scheme. The explosions that devastated the ship were deliberately set from within, using materials and methods designed to mimic the typical damage of an external attack. This explained why the initial analysis by David Mockett pointed to internal sabotage. The plan depended on every detail appearing convincing. The choice of the Gulf of Aden, one of the most dangerous regions in the world for navigation, was strategic. An attack supposedly carried out by Somali pirates would be more believable given the area's history. But the execution of the plan was meticulous and cruel. The ship's crew, made up of experienced sailors, had no idea they were being used as pawns in an insurance fraud scheme. When the fire broke out, they were genuinely in danger. Their lives were put at risk so the ship owner could profit. During the investigations, evidence emerged of payments made to intermediaries who hired the fake pirates. Additionally, financial records connected Iliopoulos to shell companies that facilitated the scheme. The courtroom revelations were explosive, but also left questions unanswered. Why was Iliopoulos never directly charged with a crime, despite the overwhelming evidence? Who else might have been involved in the scheme? The Brillante Virtuoso case left deep scars on the maritime industry. The industry reacted swiftly to the fallout from the case. Insurance companies, which faced a multi-million-dollar blow from the attempted fraud, were forced to completely overhaul their policies and claims assessment processes. The $77 million indemnity that Iliopoulos sought was suspended following the court revelations. However, the financial impact extended beyond this figure. The case generated a wave of distrust in the sector, forcing insurers to spend millions on thorough investigations before approving any claims related to piracy attacks. In the year following the case, maritime insurance companies reported a 35% increase in operational costs due to the need for implementing new anti-fraud measures. Furthermore, the case also highlighted the human cost of fraud. The Brillante Virtuoso crew, who endured a traumatic experience, had their safety jeopardized in the name of greed. Companies began adopting advanced monitoring technologies, including real-time satellite tracking and sensors capable of detecting onboard explosions or fires. Another significant change was the creation of dedicated claims investigation teams, composed of independent experts who conduct thorough inquiries into each case before approving payments. To give you an idea of the scale, after the Brillante Virtuoso case, insurers started requiring detailed inspection reports for ships passing through high-risk areas like the Gulf of Aden. International organizations such as the International Maritime Organization, IMO, intensified efforts to protect vulnerable maritime routes. Naval patrols in the Gulf of Aden were reinforced, and new security protocols were introduced to minimize the risk of both genuine and fabricated attacks. The Brillante Virtuoso case was more than a well-orchestrated fraud. It was a stark reminder of the destructive power of unchecked greed. This was not just the story of a shipowner trying to profit from a multi-million-dollar insurance payout. It was a story of lives put at risk, betrayals at the heart of a trusting crew, and a system that, in many ways, enabled the scheme to unfold. This case highlights how easily the line between profit and ethics can be crossed in the maritime sector. After all, how can vital routes like the Gulf of Aden be trusted if schemes like this can be staged right under the noses of international authorities? The case raised a moral question. If you were in the position of a crew member, how would you cope with the discovery that you were being used as part of an insurance fraud scheme? Many of the sailors who survived the incident reported feelings of profound betrayal, something they had never faced before. Perhaps the most significant legacy of the Brillante Virtuoso case is not found in court reports, legislative changes, or enhanced security measures. Instead, it lies in the way it forces us to question the very concepts of accountability and justice. Moreover, the case underscores how corporate greed becomes a destructive force when left unchecked. If Mario Iliopoulos could plan something so audacious, how many other shipowners might be exploiting loopholes in the system without ever being caught? Among all the unanswered questions left by the Brillante Virtuoso case, perhaps the most disturbing is, who was responsible for the murder of David Mockett? Despite years of investigations and speculation, no one has ever been formally accused or tried for the crime. The explosion that claimed Mockett's life was clearly planned to send a message, not just to him, but to anyone who dared to come too close to the truth, but who would be bold and powerful enough to orchestrate such a calculated attack in the heart of Aden. Theories range from local criminal networks hired to execute the crime to groups with direct interests in the insurance fraud scheme. The most mentioned theory, however, points to individuals connected to shipowner Mario Iliopoulos. Mockett had been outspoken in his observations about the fraud, and this, many believe, put him directly in the crosshairs of those responsible for the scheme. Another major unresolved issue revolves around Mario Iliopoulos, the man who stood to benefit directly from the $77 million insurance claim. Despite evidence linking him to the staged attack and explosions aboard the ship, Iliopoulos never faced direct criminal charges. This raises an uncomfortable question. How did he manage to avoid accountability? Some believe he used his influence and political connections to ensure the investigations never reached him. Others argue that loopholes in international maritime laws made it impossible to prove his guilt with absolute certainty. Iliopoulos remains active in the maritime sector and rarely comments on the case. His silence is as enigmatic as the events surrounding the Brillante Virtuoso. Now it's your turn. What do you think about this story? Do you believe all the responsible parties were identified? Or do you think there are still secrets hidden in the depths of this enigmatic case? Share your opinion in the comments and share this video with friends who enjoy real-life stories filled with mystery. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other fascinating narratives about the maritime world and its secrets. Oh, and before you go, check out the video now appearing on your screen. It brings another surprising case of conspiracy and danger on the oceans. I'm sure you'll love it. A big hug, and see you in the next sea story.